Good morning, and welcome to the Unitarian Universalist Congregation of the South Jersey Shore, a welcoming and inclusive faith community. We kindly ask that you turn off your cell phones. Doesn't matter how off they are, as long as they won't ring. Our service is open to all, visitors, friends, and members. Whether you are single, partnered, or a family of any type, we welcome you. Whether you are here in the sanctuary with us, watching live online, or on demand, may our time together be one of learning and celebration. My name is Kit Marlowe, and I am your worship associate this morning. I'm a member of the congregation and currently serve as secretary of the board. Our worship service today is led by Reverend Charlie Dieterich. After a first career as a television systems designer, Charlie changed directions, attended Star King Ministry School for Ministry in Berkeley, California, and then interned for 2 years in New Orleans. He was ordained by the UUC SJS on September 30, 2012, serving the congregation for 3 years. He then moved to Norfolk, Virginia, and Erie, Pennsylvania, and returned home to Kingston in central New Jersey. Although no longer a parish minister, Charlie remains active in the UU Trauma Response Ministry, named uutrm.org. Video of today's service will be available on our YouTube channel later today. There are a few announcements this week. Our annual meeting for UUC SJS members will be held on June 9th after the service. Members should try to be present as we have important items to vote on and we have a quorum. Only UUC SJS members can vote. Next month's Greenlight Coffee House will be held on a different Friday. Please take note. The Coffee House for June will be held on June 7th. Join us next Sunday for Cynthia Grzinski. In these uncertain times, we hear a lot about happiness, all kinds of advice about how to pursue it, how to attain it, and how to maintain it. The right to pursue something called happiness even appears in the U.S. Declaration of Independence. But what does it truly mean to be happy? We'll explore this concept by asking what science, philosophy, world religions, and culture tell us. What should we hold on to, and what should we let go? Let's hear what the likes of ancient Roman poet, philosopher Lucretius, writer and satirist George Bernard Shaw, and the venerable Buddhist monk Thich Nhat Hanh have to say. It could change your life. Welcome to worship.
May is a month of beauty, of flowers, of sunshine, of starry nights, of turning off the heat without turning on the cold. A month of gathering before new adventures, of still being able to drive the speed limit on US 9 and greeting familiar cashiers at ShopRite. May is a month of possible stillness, of taking a moment to think about it all, or maybe an afternoon to dream, of memories remembered before new memories are made. May is a month of now. Let us consider our time together. I'd like to invite Nancy Watson to begin our service this morning by lighting our chalice. We have words in your order of service. Our chalice lighting is a simple one. It's one I learned years ago. Let us open our eyes to see what is beautiful. Let us open our minds to learn what is true. Let us open our hearts to love one another. Thank you very much. Our opening hymn, you're invited to rise or stay seated as you wish. It's in the teal hymnal. It's blue for those of you who don't know colors. It's our gathering hymn number 131, Filled with Loving Kindness.
May
Our time for all ages, well, our is about the Metta Sutta. The service today is all about very old writings and how they might be useful today. So this morning, for the time for all ages, I thought I'd share some Buddhist teachings, specifically one related to our gathering hymn filled with loving kindness. The hymn is based on something called the Metta Sutta. Can you say that? Metta Sutta? Very good. The name is in an old language called Pali. It's a language which nobody speaks anymore. But 2,500 years ago, a man named Siddhartha Gautama lived in a Pali-speaking kingdom. Through years of study, he created a philosophy of understanding life. He was then called the Buddha, meaning the awakened one. You may have heard of him. His followers formed monasteries to study his teachings, and the Metta Sutta was one of them. Metta means loving kindness, and sutta means a book or scroll or chapter. In Sanskrit, the word is sutra, a word you may have heard. The Metta Sutta is often recited by monks at the beginning of instruction sessions. It's short and easy to understand, so rather than interpret it for you, we have the opportunity to recite it together. I'm going to start with the end, and then ask you to join in on the early part. It's a sort of a call and repeat. I knew you didn't know you'd have to get to work today, but there you go. I modified it slightly from a translation from Thanissaro Bhikkhu. The Buddha said, as a mother would risk her life to protect her child, her only child, even so should one cultivate a limitless heart with regard to all beings, with goodwill for the entire cosmos. Cultivate a limitless heart, above, below, all around, unobstructed, without hostility or hate. Whether standing, walking, sitting, or lying down, as long as one is alert, one should be resolved to this mindfulness. This is called a sublime abiding here and now. So with that image of a mother protecting her child in our minds, here's the first part of the sutta. I'm going to pause after each line so that you can repeat it. This is to be done. This is to be done. By one who wants to break through. By one who wants to break through. To a state of peace. To a state of peace. Be capable, upright, and straightforward. Be capable, upright, and straightforward. Easy to instruct, gentle, and not conceited. Easy to instruct, gentle, and not conceited. Content and not demanding. Content and not demanding. With few duties, living lightly. With few duties, living lightly. Serene, prudent, and modest. Serene, prudent, and modest. And not greedy. Do not do the slightest thing that the wise would criticize. Do not do the slightest thing that the wise would criticize. And think these thoughts. Happy at rest. Happy at rest. May all beings be happy at heart. May all beings be happy at heart. Whatever beings they may be. Weak or strong without exception. Weak or strong without exception. Long, large. Long, large. Middling, short. Middling, short. Subtle, blatant. Subtle, blatant. Seen and unseen. Seen and unseen. Near and far. Near and far. born and seeking birth. May all beings be happy at heart. Let no one deceive another or despise anyone anywhere. Let no one deceive another or despise anyone anywhere, or through anger or resistance wish for another to suffer. Anger or resistance wish another to suffer. This is to be done by one who wants to break through to a state of peace. Whenever you sing filled with loving kindness, think of the teachings of the Metta Sutta. It's not just I, you, and we, but all persons and all beings.
A book is provided in the foyer, in which you are invited to share whatever joys and sorrows you have as you enter. I will now read what you have shared. Just one note from Betsy C. Wright. John is out of the hospital. We have challenging times ahead. We will keep Betsy in our mind. Let us share a quiet time to reflect on our week. Let us recognize any joys or concerns too private to share. During the musical interlude, you may come forward and place a pebble in the water to acknowledge a personal joy or sorrow.
Today we have sung a song of compassion. We have said words of compassion and peace. And while we may have earlier listened to the news, which fosters dis-ease, anger, and blame, may we turn our hearts to work towards justice from a place of loving kindness. Local authority Peace Pilgrim once wrote, "Insofar as you have peace in your life, you reflect it into your surroundings and into your world." In our own lives, may we summon strength to do what needs to be done, while accepting the truth that we cannot do it all, and we cannot do it alone. May we have the humility to ask for help, and the civility to listen and to learn and to lend a hand. Amen.
Every week we take up an offering during our service. It's good to remind ourselves from time to time that the offering is symbolic as well as practical. We know it is through pledges that we build our budget and fund our yearly programs in ministries of worship and religious education, pay our staff and professional religious leaders, and finance the comfort and beauty of our building. If this is your first time visiting us today, feel free to let the basket pass, as your presence is gift enough. For those who are participating online, please visit uucsjs.org and click on the yellow donate button for ways to donate. Our offering says that the act of giving is as essential to our spiritual well-being as anything else we do here on Sunday mornings. The morning offering will now be given and received in the spirit of grateful fellowship. I know that our readings tend not to be from the Bible, and probably never from the complete Jewish Bible translation of the book of Exodus. But Reverend Charlie asked me to read a passage from one of the 5 books of the Torah this morning. We will alternate verses.
It says, "You are not to repeat false rumors. Do not join hands with the wicked by offering perjured testimony."
Do not follow the crowd when it does what is wrong. And don't allow the popular view to sway you into offering testimony for any cause if the effect will be to pervert justice.
On the other hand, don't favor a person's lawsuit simply because he is poor.
If you come upon your enemy's ox or donkey straying, you must return it to him.
If you see the donkey which belongs to someone who hates you, lying down helplessly under its load, you are not to pass him, but go and help him free it.
Do not deny anyone justice in his lawsuit simply because he is poor.
Keep away from fraud and do not cause the death of an innocent and righteous, for I will not justify the wicked.
You are not to receive a bribe, for a bribe blinds the clear-sighted and subverts the cause of the righteous.
You are not to oppress a foreigner, for you know how a foreigner feels, since you were foreigners in the land of Egypt.
This ends our reading.
How many of you remember that famous epic movie? It came out in 1981, The History of the World, Part 1. Mel Brooks, with a long, flowing beard, appears in a crag on Mount Sinai, receiving 3 sacred tablets on which God has inscribed the laws of the people of Israel. Returning to the valley, he climbs up on an outcropping with the tablets and says, "Hear me, O hear me, all pay heed, the Lord our God has given unto you these 15, and then he drops one of the tablets, which shatters. Looking down, he says, "Oi." But he doesn't miss a beat. These 10 commandments for all of you to obey. Yes, our reading this morning was from the Hebrew book of Exodus, a biblical account of the tribes of Israel led by Moses, the great lawgiver, as they move from slavery in Egypt to the promised land. And Mel Brooks was, of course, parodying Cecil B. DeMille's epic classic 1956 movie, The 10 Commandments, where Charlton Heston and a really big wind machine gives a lasting image of Moses. It's the climax of the film, Moses bringing the 10 Commandments from Mount Sinai. Cue the lighting effects. The 10 Commandments movie tells the story on an epic scale as a Hollywood story with pageantry and drama. It is time we got past the Hollywood special effects. I did a little bit of a special effect when I named this sermon The 9 Commandments, because they are not 9 commandments or 10 commandments, or to be accurate, there are no commandments at all. The word commandment is a Christian term and understanding. The Jewish term is mitzvah, singular, or mitzvot, plural. A mitzvah is a duty or ban to observe the faith. Though we tend to think that there are 10 of them, The Hebrew Bible actually lists 613 mitzvot dealing with everything from clothing to sacrifices. And of these, only 77 positive duties and 194 negative bans can be observed today. The others deal with worship at the Jerusalem temple, which no longer exists. In 3 weeks, during the Jewish holiday of Shavuot, Jews will celebrate the receiving of the Torah, the 5 books of the laws of Moses. I go to dinner monthly at a place near an Orthodox Jewish synagogue where boys with big black hats cross the intersection for their evening prayers or study. The laws of Moses are very alive even today. All of that is just a way of me to explain the alternate title for this sermon, 9 Mitzvot from the start of chapter 23 of the book of Exodus. I originally wrote this sermon in reaction to news of the requirement of placing stone statues of the 10 Commandments in front of courthouses in Kentucky and Texas. This week, and I did not plan this, the state of Louisiana voted to require them to be displayed in every school and college classroom. The so-called 10 Commandments are not even very appropriate, especially next to a graven image of George Washington or the Virgin Mary. And what is coveting another person's house all about? If I were putting up Bible verses in front of courthouses, I would select a different set. I think the 9 mitzvot that we just read sound like an excellent set of messages for people coming into a courthouse. They might be fun to put them in front of a courthouse, maybe in New York or Atlanta or Miami. And so I thought it would be useful to go over what they say and what they might mean. The 9 mitzvot include 7 bans and 2 duties. They can be divided into 4 groups: honest testimony, compassion, fair judgment, and humility. The first 3 speak of honesty in testimony. You are not to repeat false rumors. Do not join hands with the wicked by offering perjured testimony. Do not follow the crowd when it does what is wrong, and don't allow the popular view to sway you in offering testimony for any cause if the effect will be to pervert justice. On the other hand, don't favor a person's lawsuit simply because he is poor. They all speak of making sure that there is equal protection under the law. With something to do perhaps with lynchings and mob intimidation in the first 2, and a commitment to truth, even when it seems good to bias what you said out of pity for a poor person. Says, don't do that. Then come 2 odd admonitions calling you to compassionate action. If you come upon an enemy's ox or donkey straying, you must return it to him. If you see a donkey which belongs to someone who hates you lying down hopeless under its load, you are not to pass him, but go and help him free it. You might paraphrase these as something like honor your enemy or honor those who hate you, though they could just as easily be considered honor donkeys or honor oxen. But there it is, you must. You are required to return stray animals, even to an enemy. And you are required to help rescue an overloaded donkey, even if its owner hates you. Do these only apply to oxen and donkeys? Or do we generalize them to cats, horses, automobiles, children? When I read those, I wondered if the treating of slaves as property meant that you were required to bring back wandering slaves, the American Fugitive Slave Act of 1850, for example, or the requirement to capture undocumented persons and deport them. Does this verse from Exodus echo current laws? On the other hand, I see these as a call to compassion. Maybe you can use the donkey mitzvah in your life. The nightly news regularly has stories of rescues performed by strangers caught on camera. And now that I think about it, the Good Samaritan was a follower of the mitzvah of Exodus in his story, and his story is the basis of one of the most memorable teachings in the Greek New Testament. Samaritans hated Jews, but an injured man is an injured man. We are called to compassion. In war, soldiers receive medical treatment, whether patriot or enemy. They are now a patient. You know, these two, I think, need to be advertised a little better. And the next three are perfect for courthouses. They deal with legal judgments. Do not deny anyone justice in his lawsuit simply because he is poor. Keep away from fraud, and do not cause the death of the innocent and righteous, for I will not justify the wicked. You are not to receive a bribe, for a bribe blinds the clear-sighted and subverts the cause of righteousness. The first of these deals with justice and the poor. Indeed, don't shade your testimony to favor the poor, but also make sure poor people are not denied justice. For example, putting poor people in jail so they can't prepare a defense is a denial of equal justice. So is predatory plea bargaining. As for the other two, fraud and bribery, oh my. Finally, you are not to oppress a foreigner, for you know how a foreigner feels, since you were foreigners in the land of Egypt. What do we do with that one? When someone saves your life, how can you refuse to save another? Or every person is the image of God? Or there, but for the grace of God, go I? On a national level, I see this as a final mitzvah, as a call to our nation's humility. The other news stories, when I originally wrote the sermon, were deportations of persons without documentation and cruelty towards those seeking asylum in our nation. We dehumanized them, calling them illegals or criminal dishwashers, and we insisted on America for Americans. To have this admonition inscribed on the courthouse door just might give pause to those who believe that. God blessed and manifested we the people who are already here. Well, no. I wonder how our world could bend toward justice. What would it look like, and how could it be done? You know, George Carlin was right when he said, 10 Commandments was a marketing decision. People wouldn't take 11 seriously, or 9. It had to be a nice number. Too few and people would say, okay, name them. And too many, and nobody would remember all of them. I wonder how those teenage boys studying in the synagogue feel about the 273 mitzvot they need to follow in their faith. And yet, of this set of 9, I'm not sure I'd eliminate any one of them, because, 8 or 7 both are nicer numbers than 9. But all 9 of these mitzvot are important. Maybe the donkey ones, but no. They're the beginning of love your enemy, about as far as one could go back in those days of warring tribes and mistrust. They illustrate the beginning of good faith. We couldn't possibly get rid of those. I wondered what might happen if Christians learned these 9 in addition to the tablet 10. So I went to the lectionary. The common lectionary is a 3-year cycle of readings used by most Protestant and Catholic churches, with some variation. The rule in Judaism is that the congregation will read through all 5 books of the Torah cover to cover every year. But Christians pick and choose and jump around. Each Bible selection only comes up once every 3 years, and all Christians hear the same ones in a given week. The 10 Commandments, by the way, is in October sometimes, minus some details about not actually working on Sabbath or punishing those who have worshipped carved images. But all of Exodus 23 is missing, as is Exodus 22, oddly enough. They're left on the cutting room floor when the lectionary Bible verses were standardized. What would happen if churches slipped them back in once in a while? Buddhist monks internalize loving kindness by repeating the Metta Sutta regularly. It becomes part of their understanding of the world, their path to Nibbana, or in Sanskrit, Nirvana. May all beings be happy at heart. Let no one deceive another or despise anyone anywhere, or through anger or resistance wish for another to suffer. Why talk about the 9 commandments? Why did I ask you to spend 20 minutes of your life listening to dusty words of another culture? Words that are not even standard parts of American discourse. Sermons are supposed to give hope and challenge and comfort and courage. What could 9 verses about donkeys possibly provide? At one point, I would have said nothing. But I want to change my answer to everything. Because I'm thirsty and I'm hungry. I'm thirsty for truth and hungry for justice, and I'm grasping for beloved community. I'm not a Bible-thumping preacher. Indeed, you may never hear me mention the laws of Moses again, though in America today, talking commandments is one way to keep fundamentalists and evangelicals in the conversation. Still, shifting the discussion from coveting wives to oppression of foreigners could be a wonderful thing. If only we could. If only we could. A few months ago, I gave a sermon about Clarence Skinner, who was a Universalist minister when liberal religion was at a very low ebb. 100 years ago, in 1924, he published a poem called In Times of Disillusion. It begins, "The world has grown unutterably old, a place of bitter disillusionment, like some sad ruin out of ancient time, half buried in obliterating sand. So seems the gallant world of yesteryear to one who fellowshipped with wistful dreams. The house where we held a rendezvous with hope is dark. The dreams are gone. But then Skinner's tone shifts. He says, dreams outlast the dreamer. And then he says, therefore I'll dream, I'll light a candle yet again, illuminate the dark forsaken house, bring back the folk who thrilled at the glimpses of a fairer world. And the poem ends, I'll still proclaim the vision splendid, till it strike God-fire in old and broken hearts, and urges on the world to consummate its dream. I light the candle, and I dream. Without seeing the draft of my sermon, Cynthia selected hymn number 121 in the gray hymnal for our closing hymn. She said, it's a bit rousing. Let's see how you folks do. Number 121, we'll build a land. You may rise if you feel moved to.
We're going to do verses 1, 2, and 4.
Take two.
We'll build a land where we bind up the broken. We'll build a land where the captives go free, where the oil of gladness dissolves.
let's read the words together for extinguishing the chalice. We extinguish this flame Well, I must say I'm not used to the postlude being quite so danceable. We warmly welcome all who are visiting today. Now let us share a moment of silent reflection to consider today's message and the meaning it has in our lives. I have noticed.